Hey guys, so this is a video about just file prep for rigging. So I'm going to go over a few details that you need to do in your file before you start rigging these characters up. Now, first of all, we're going to be looking at divisions. So you need subdivisions, or you need these edge loops. You're going to need a few around each different joint that's going to be bending. So you'll notice on my knuckles, I have or on my digits, I have 3 spans there, same with these elbows, the shoulder has a lot of spans in there, same with the knees. So basically wherever your model's going to be bending, you need some extra divisions there. Because it'll ease the form as it's like contracting and expanding, so it'll look a lot nicer when you have them. Also, some overall details is that in object mode, when you click on your character, everything needs to be facing towards Z positive. So where this blue arrow is, make sure you're in world axis. You do that by holding W and left clicking over it. You go to world. So then you know that it's facing Z in the world space, because a lot of auto rigging software works with Z positive facing models. Also, I like to name my model at this point. And I like to have all my meshes combined. You'll notice that this eyebrow and the hair and stuff, these are separate meshes, but I just put them on top, and then mesh combine them. Let's go to modeling, mesh. I just went to mesh and then combine. And then also your pivot point, I always like to have that be at the character's feet and at world 0. So you can change the pivot point by holding D and adjusting on each of these different axes. And then I like to use the snapping methods. So say my pivot point was, say my pivot point was up here. Oh man. Say my pivot point was up here. So I want that to be at the feet. So I would hold D and I would hold V and just align that straight to the bottom of those feet. And then if I was askew, I'm going to do that because I had a perfect pivot set up. Then if I was askew, say you were modeling over here for some reason, I would always hold X, not D this time because we're not changing the pivot point. We just want to move the entire object to the middle. So I would hold X and snap to the grid on this axis, and then snap on this axis, and then make sure it's snapped on the Y axis as well. So that's some more setup. Also, I would go look into your world scale. So see how big this grid is. And if you look at my channel box, I have values of 1, 1, 1. So that means I'm at my regular scale. I haven't done any sort of changing. You see if I go like this, you'll see that it changed to 1.11. I'm going to undo that. So you want all these values to be zeroed out. So after you get your model back into the middle and back to the proper scale that you want, you're going to go to Modify and then Freeze Transforms. And then it will set your all of your transform values that you have in here to be zeroed out on translation and rotation, and then 1 in scale. And then we're going to go check our preferences. So that was in Windows, Settings, and Preferences, and you'll see all these settings for everything in Maya. And we're looking at settings. This is set to centimeter. So if this grid is at centimeters, let's go to meters. And then, so a meter is about 3 and some change feet, right? So if you think about each of these grid lengths being a little more than 3 feet, and grandma's super tiny. So basically what we did was we modeled this at the wrong scale. So I'm going to go in, and you can, by the way, you can click and drag over these boxes, and then you'll see it'll highlight the last one, and I'll just type 100 into there, and then scale up grandma. You'll see that we're getting some weird shading artifacts now, and that's not due to anything on the model. What that is a setting in your camera called near and far clip plane. Oh, by the way, before I go fix that, I'm going to go set this back to centimeters and then save. and we're at grandma's now real world size. So if I go into, where is it? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, camera. So to fix this like weird black and gray popping, I'm going to click on this little camera icon here and go to the attribute editor. I'm going to adjust this near clip. I'm going to make this 0.01. Now let's see if that fixes it. So yeah, so that is just a camera setting, and it has to do with when the camera is kind of like trying to render your model, and when you input values that are like, oh, this camera can go super close up to the model, then it gets a little bit confused and leads to some bad shading that you saw in the viewport. So yeah, now I'm going to click back on this. You'll notice that I'm at 100 in scale and size, and translation and rotation are 0. So, but this is the size that I want, right? So I would need to freeze that scale. I'll do that with freeze transformations. And you can pop open the box, the option box, and yeah, that's perfect. So I'm going to do that, and notice how it reset to 1. So then we're good to go. I'm going to save this model. The scene is pretty much prepared. Just make sure, the last step, make sure when you're rigging that you only have the mesh in the scene. This is a default light set and default object set. I believe these are some like default shaders in there, and then this is the shader that's applied to grandma and her mesh. You'll see that it has a bunch of wild values in there. And then these are just cameras. So you want basically just these basic things and your mesh, and then you're set to go. One thing to think about when you're deleting all these nodes in the outliner, you'll see a bunch of, depending on how you created your model, you might see a bunch of different groups in here. They'll look like this. So I'm just going to press Control G to make a group. They'll look like this. They'll have this little arrow on there, and then your mesh will be under them. That is also created sometimes when you're like when you do a mesh combine operation. So if you do mesh combine, then sometimes it will create a node in here. That'll be like a subnode, and if you try to delete that, then it will delete your model. And what you need to do is edit, delete all by type history, and then you'll be free to Shift P and then delete that old group. That way you have just your mesh singled out here. And then you can always do, before you rig, just edit, delete all by type, history. And then that should be the last step before you get ready to rig. So there's that for you.